The views in the following program reflect those of the participants and not necessarily of Rogers or Rogers TV. Hello everyone and welcome to Mommy Talk. Today's subject is a difficult subject. We're going to talk about the loss of our little ones. Sometimes it happens where we lose a pregnancy or an infant and there's people there that can support you. And so today on the show we have some very important people who are there to support us through these tough times, the PAIL Network. Welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show. We have Lynn Davis over here. Lynn is the manager of the programs of the PAIL Network. We also have Michelle Rich, and we have Jamie McCleary. Lynn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Sure. I'm the mother of 2 grown children, and I have 3 living grandchildren and 1 that didn't survive.
Okay. And Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah. I'm the mother of 1 teenage daughter. In my family, we struggled for a very long time to get that 1 daughter. So understanding loss is important,
something that you've experienced.
Close to my heart. Yeah.
And Jamie, tell me a little bit about your family.
I have 5 children, 3 who have survived, and 2 little boys who passed away during pregnancy.
Okay. So we're also going to now talk about PAIL Network and how we're involved in PAIL Network. So let's come back to you, Jamie. So you mentioned the 2 that didn't survive. How did you first get involved in PAIL?
I discovered PAIL back in 2007 when I lost my first son at 14 weeks. And I looked myself to find a support system because I was having a very hard time finding someone.
Yeah.
And at the time it was called PBSO, or Perinatal Bereavement Services of Ontario.
Right, okay.
And I attended as a bereaved mom for about a year, and then I lost my second son at 18 weeks the following year. And then about 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to be more involved in helping other people who had experienced what I had experienced.
So what do you do for PAIL now?
Right now I offer one-to-one peer support on the telephone. So bereaved moms will call me and then we have conversations. I believe it's up to 9 sessions. So we'll talk whenever they need to talk about something.
That's wonderful. It's so nice to know that there's someone one-on-one to be able to call and talk to when you're experiencing something so awful.
Yeah.
And Michelle, what do you do in the PAIL Network?
I help to facilitate the volunteer group, the support group locally. Here in Collingwood and the surrounding area, we support moms who have experienced loss, and fathers and grandparents and even friends. So
you do the local.
I do the local
area. And Lynn, yourself, how are you involved in the PAIL Network?
I'm the program manager for PAIL Network, and as part of my role, I'm the first line of contact for bereaved families who call and are looking for support. So I'm the one that actually connects them with our Michelles and our Jamies, and for support. And I also do some other programming, help with the events. We do some workshops. We also are the only recognized Canadian resource for healthcare professionals. We do a lot of information for them. We produce booklets like Silent Birth and Early Pregnancy Loss, which we send out to people who request them. Plus we have a supply in hospitals and.
That's great. So when we come back, we're going to get more into this. We're going to talk a little bit more about experiences. So please join us back on Mommy Talk. The views in the following program reflect those of the participants and not necessarily of Rogers or Rogers TV. Welcome back to Mommy Talk. Today we're discussing the PAIL network, Pregnancy and Infancy Loss Network. So our guests today are going to talk a little bit more about their personal experiences. So Lynn, would you like to share a little bit about your personal experience?
Sure. I come to it a little bit differently in that I'm a grandma, and my daughter-in-law's pregnancy was going along beautifully, and we thought everything was going fine. Unfortunately, things didn't turn out that way. Nolan, my little grandson, had 5 heart defects. 4 of them could have possibly been fixed. He would have been a very, very sick little boy, but 4 could have been corrected. The 5th, unfortunately, not, and we lost him. And so, as wearing the hat of as a bereaved grandmother in PAIL Network, I can certainly relate to what other grandparents are going through, because it's a really hard situation, because not only are you hurting so much for your son, well, in my case my daughter-in-law and son, but you're also finding a way and trying to find a way to grieve yourself. And I found out very early on that you had to take my lead, from my family and what they wanted and what they needed at the time, and to be supportive, but to also give them the space that they needed. Like right afterwards, I know my son and daughter-in-law needed to go away with their other son in cocoon for about a week or so before they just needed to be together. And that's kind of hard in a way, because what you want to do is, I want to help you. What can I do to help? You just want to, and it's hard, and that's a really important thing, is to learn how to take that step back and follow the lead.
That's a difficult position to be in, because you have experienced a loss here too, but you also have to be that supportive person. So you're playing 2 roles. You're not playing 2 roles, but you have 2 roles.
You have 2 roles to
you
play.
are grieving, but you're also having to step in and be supportive. So that's a difficult
it's
position
a
for
very
grandparents.
difficult. It's very difficult to find that balance, and to get to where you need to be with your grief too, and to be able to express your grief.
Right.
For me, I had an opportunity at that time to return to the Heart and Stroke Foundation, where I had done a previous contract, and I found that very cathartic in that Nolan's problems were heart related.
Yes.
To me, that was really good. I felt like I was doing something, because the Heart and Stroke Foundation looks after raising money for research.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is just my little
helped you through
small
that loss.
part,
Yeah.
In helping, and maybe another family won't have to suffer a loss like we did.
Michelle, can you tell me a little bit about the losses you've experienced?
My losses are different too, in that I struggled for probably 8 years to have a baby, and what I noticed was that nobody talked about it.
Right.
There was no conversation. So I really respect you, Lynn, in how you were able to communicate with your family when there was a loss, and how, okay, what do you need? And I think that's really important for families who experience this kind of loss, to have that conversation, and to not just guess at what they need, or to assume what it is that you need is what they need.
Right. Every individual grieves differently.
Yeah.
Everyone grieves differently. Everyone deals differently, copes differently. Yeah, for
so
sure.
Communication and asking, what do you need right now? How do you want me to be here?
Yeah. And Jamie, what about a little bit more about your losses?
My initial loss with my son, Perrin, his name is, we had a hard time because, again, nobody wanted to talk about it.
Right.
And For me, that was something I absolutely had to do. I had to acknowledge his existence.
Right.
And no one wanted to do that because I was
yeah.
only 14 weeks pregnant when we lost him,
Yeah,
so
that's
he
hard.
wasn't real. So I struggled for a very long time, for about a year, until I came to that realization that no one else mattered in the equation but me, my husband, my daughter, what we needed.
Right.
And that was something PAIL Network helped me to understand, was that nothing I was doing was wrong.
Right.
Everything I needed to do was okay.
Yes.
And that was how I got through it. So the following year when we lost Matson, my second son, at 18 weeks, I was able to say, you know, in the hospital, he's getting his name now. This is what we're doing. This is how we're honoring him. This is how we're going to proceed for the next forever, pretty much.
Right.
And so it was a lot smoother and a lot less painful in that we were only grieving him rather than grieving him and struggling to go through everything else at the same time.
Right. So you mentioned how the PAIL Network helped you. So let's get into how the PAIL Network helps grieving parents. How does it specifically help grieving parents?
Well, one of our main goals is to help, we don't use the term recover because it's something you never recover from.
No.
But hopefully to come to a place of acceptance of the situation, and also to help the families that come to us integrate the memory of their lost baby into their lives as they move forward. So that, you know, in whatever way they choose to honor, you know, the memory of that child, it's okay, and we'll help you to find coping techniques.
And grieving a baby is such a unique grief because there is no, where they say stages of grief where you lose a husband or you lose a parent. It's something everyone has experienced, but until you've experienced the loss of a baby,
it's something
you
totally
don't know
different.
how you are specifically going to grieve. And
No, of
there are
course not.
so many ways to get through it that it's difficult for people to understand.
Absolutely, and it's people can try to relate, but sometimes they just don't know. Michelle, can you tell us about the work that the local PAIL Network does?
We meet once a month, and it's open to moms, dads, parents, grandparents, friends, and we meet and we share. So the folks, it's not therapy, it's a place where people can come together and talk about their lost little loves, and they're able to show pictures or, you know, just say where they're at.
Well, just be together with a common feeling
and
or
an understanding.
common understanding of what everyone is going through. Sometimes that's hard, you know, if you feel alone and you don't know that there's someone out there that has experienced the same thing. So these groups are so important. So other than the groups, what other kind of services does PAIL offer? So you mentioned the one-on-one talking.
Yeah, and basically we can do it in any way. So I try and leave it as an open format. If somebody wants to talk, they just email me and say, hey, can we talk this week?
Right, okay.
So Lynn will pass me people who are looking for support, and I think we generally try and keep it the same experiences.
What I try to do is, you know, like no two situations are entirely the same, but if there's been a stillbirth, then I try to connect, you know, the mom with another mom who's had a stillbirth, or if it's an early loss, you know, just kind of, just so that there's a starting point somewhere.
Right.
You know, and then there's an intake form that has to be filled out. To go to either the group or to receive the phone support, and that's accessed through our website.
Right.
And
we're going to put that on the screen.
And then the intake form just comes back to me, and then that's where my starting point is to connect with the person and to make sure that they're getting the kind of support they need.
Yeah, because you want to link them with someone who understood what they're going through.
Exactly, and sometimes they want both phone support and group support at the same time, and that's fine. I even have a couple of dads on our volunteer list who are willing to talk with other dads, because we know that men tend to grieve a little differently.
Well, touching on that, so do you find there's a big difference between how men and women deal with the loss of children?
Very much so.
And can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Men want to be strong for their wives and their partners. They don't want to appear weak.
Right.
often because they're not the one who's carried the child, there's a little bit of disconnect sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
I can see that, yeah.
yeah, it's just they go through all kinds of different things, even returning, like going back to work and with their colleagues and things like that, and having to tell other people, you know, that they've had a loss.
Answer the questions.
Answer the questions.
What happened?
Why.
And yep.
Exactly. Yes, they tend to be a little bit more inward, you know, with their grief. They don't. Not everybody. You can't generalize it, but sometimes that's what we see happening.
Right.
Again, there's a feeling of isolation. I'm so glad for the dads that we have who are willing to support the other dads, because they can relate from that guy feeling, and you know, things maybe that the dads aren't willing to openly share with their you know, with their partners. You know, that they can.
Do you have dads in your local programs?
Yes. And what I find interesting is that men tend to deal with grief very differently, this kind of grief very differently. And oftentimes what can happen too is there can be a disconnect between partners.
Yes. They do say that, like when you've lost a child, sometimes the partners start to drift apart, you know? So you help with that?
To a degree, you know, we're able to bring it out and talk about it.
Yeah.
And say, well, you know, I'm dealing with it this way, but he doesn't even talk about it. Or, and so just being able to say, yeah, you know, there's another woman in the group who can say, yes, I have that exact same feeling. And then a dad who's sitting there can say, well, this is what my experience is, and maybe, and provide that different perspective so that it, you know, the families can come back together.
Right. Is it a bit of a circle group kind of thing? That's kind of the way it looks, that's when people come to the meetings. And then do you find that the dads do a lot of the one-on-one work too, like the phone calls, or is it more the moms?
I've had a few couples so they've done it together.
Yeah, that's great.
But I've never had specifically any dads. But again, with the phone calls, you know, if I do have a comment from one of the people that I'm supporting saying, you know, my husband doesn't get it or he's not involved, then we try not to do the advice. We try and sort of let them come to conclusions on their own. But I'm able to say, okay, you know, just ask each other. Sit down and ask each other about what your perspective is.
Open that
or even just walk up and say, I'm feeling this way because you don't want to talk about it. And just open that communication, because then he can come back with a response, or he can, you can work on it together. But
well, this is great. It's a great program. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's one of the things that we're very clear about, is that this is a peer-led organization. We're not professionals. We're not giving professional advice. We're helping.
It's a support group.
To support, you know, and with things that have been helpful. You know, we have learned some coping techniques along the way, and we're willing to share those. But we're trying to help bring people to their own to their own answers.
And so speaking of people coming through this, and healing, we're going to look at some pictures of your butterfly picnic, your butterfly release that you have each year. Tell us a little bit about that when the pictures come up here.
That's one of mine, actually, from, I believe, 2010. That would have been the first butterfly picnic after I had my first son, after my 2 losses. So there he is there with my daughter. So we do that as a family every year.
And so what do you exactly do with the release? So you take the butterfly and kind of push it up into the air kind of thing?
Yeah, we have the butterfly release event during the actual picnic itself. So it's a lot of family gathering. We have the picnic lunch. There's the carnival games, face painting, and then at the release part, everybody just sort of opens their butterfly packaging.
Nice readings.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And,
that's beautiful.
It's very reflective at that point.
Yes.
And then afterward, it kind of changes into an old-time family picnic.
Well, that's great. That's a great way to kind of complete your healing, like come together and do something positive and release these butterflies in memory of our lost children.
Yes.
Quickly, before we finish, how is PAIL Network funded?
Primarily by donation,
Okay.
Grant writing, Trillium.
So if you want to donate to PAIL Network, get on the website or call Lynn or call anybody.
Yes, we're always
donate.
willing to accept your donations.
Thank you so much for being on the show. It was really nice to hear your personal experiences and how you've gotten through them. You are strong women, and I really appreciate you and what you do for the women out there that have experienced these losses. And thank you so much for being there. It's just a wonderful thing. I mean, we all need to heal each other. This world needs to heal each other.
I think it's our privilege.
Yeah, definitely. So when we come back, we're going to go out into the community and do something fun with our children. Thank you very much, and we'll see you when we get back on Mommy Talk. The views in the following program reflect those of the participants and not necessarily of Rogers or Rogers TV. Welcome back to Mommy Talk. We've been discussing the PAIL network, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go out into the community and find somewhere fun to take our families and spend time together. So I took Esri to the Elmvale Jungle Zoo. It's a very popular place around here. A lot of the kids love to go there. The zoo was founded in 1967, so it's been around for a while, and it's on 25 acres of land and has over 300 animals. You can see some of the animals here. This was from one of the shows that they do where they bring the animals out, the little babies, and there's the flamingos. As you can see, the one thing I love about this zoo is the enclosures are huge. These animals have lots of space to roam. You know, sometimes people get a negative view of zoos because of the cages, but honestly, this zoo is amazing. It's so natural looking. There's the giraffe. They have such natural looking enclosures made of wood. And you can even go into some of the enclosures, like the goats here. Ezri's in there with the little baby goats. So cute. She loved that. She was a little bit scared of it, but she had a great time. There's some monkeys. The monkey enclosures are awesome. They're huge. They have hanging tires and toys. And one thing I love about it too is this picture. This is my aunt and Ezri walking through the jungle zoo. It's all through the forest, so it's very natural looking. It's one of the best things that I love about it. There's the monkeys again in their nice big enclosure. These animals are happy. They're having babies. They're feeding their babies. They're taking care of their babies. This zoo is very aware of these animals' natural lifestyle, and they are very happy here. You can tell by their behaviors. There's the leopard, I believe that is. Yeah, and you can see how just beautiful these enclosures are. There's Ezri. Her favorite was the giraffe. So what a cutie. Anyways, we had a really great time there. Thank you so much to the Elmvale Jungle Zoo. And thank you so much from all you guys at the PAIL Network. You really enlightened us on how to get through such a hard time and how to come through in the support that you offer. Thank you so much. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Mommy Talk.